Canada just announced a brand new housing agency with $13 billion behind it. It's called Build Canada Homes, and for the first time in decades, the federal government says it will build homes directly. They're starting with 4,000 factory-built units on federal land in 5 provinces: Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and Alberta. My name is Shahrad Sardari, a local realtor here in Vancouver, and in today's video, we're going to explain what this new agency is planning, why Ottawa believes it will work, the problems I see with it, and finally, what I think would actually make homes affordable here in Vancouver. Let's get started. The basics are simple. Build Canada Homes is a new federal builder, and the government will use federal land, special financing, and factory-style building methods to create affordable and mixed-income housing. The program has $13 billion to start, and that's with a B. The first rollout is 4,000 homes spread across 6 federal sites. Ottawa says construction will begin next year, and on top of that, they've added a $1.5 billion rental protection fund so nonprofits can buy older rentals and keep them affordable. Another $1 billion for supportive housing, and a partnership to build over 700 homes in Nunavut. So on the surface, this looks like a great, bold nation-building plan. The government is betting on 3 main ideas: speed, Canadian jobs, and cutting red tape. Let's look at each of them. First, speed. They say factory-built homes, modular and prefabricated ones, can be built in months instead of years. Whole sections will get built on a plant or factory, shipped to site, and assembled like Legos. The belief is that this will double the pace of construction. But the problem? Faster doesn't necessarily mean cheaper. In Vancouver, the real costs come from land, taxes, and city fees. So even if you cut construction timelines in half, you don't fix the root problem. A fast-built $1 million condo is still a $1 million condo. Second, the government is pushing a Buy Canadian policy. They say using Canadian lumber, steel, and aluminum will create jobs and keep money in the country. And that sounds amazing. But here is the reality. Private builders already do this every day. Most developers here already hire Canadian trades, use Canadian lumber, and support local suppliers. You don't need a government agency to make that happen. The private sector has been doing this for decades. Third, they say a single federal agency will cut red tape and move faster than private developers. But we all know government projects rarely move fast. Look at transit lines or hospitals. They almost always run over budget and over time. Expecting a brand new federal builder to suddenly become the most efficient developer in the country just doesn't line up with reality. One of the biggest selling points is that Ottawa will use federal land. The promise is simple. If the government provides the land at a discount, the homes built on it should cost less. And yes, cheaper land helps, but here's how the cost really breaks down. Even on federal land, buyers have to pay GST on new homes. That tax is based on the fair market value of the unit, and that valuation usually includes the land portion, whether the land is owned outright or leased long-term. Buyers may qualify for some rebates, but the tax still applies in most cases. In BC, long leases over 30 years can trigger the property transfer tax, unless the lease is structured under that threshold or fits the exemptions. So buyers can still end up paying tens of thousands in taxes even if Ottawa provides the land. And then there's the city charges. Vancouver stacks on development charges and community amenity contributions that, depending on the project, can add tens of thousands of dollars per unit. These don't vanish just because the land is owned federally. The city would have to actively waive them, and that is not guaranteed. Finally, while Ottawa holds land, it doesn't pay property taxes. It makes what's called a payment in lieu of taxes. But as soon as the land is sold or leased to a builder, normal property taxes kick right back in. So yes, discounted land does lower one line item, but the heavy load of taxes, fees stays baked into the final price. And that's why affordability in Vancouver doesn't suddenly appear just because Ottawa owns the land. Notice that BC was completely left out of the first rollout. If this plan was the silver bullet, you'd expect them to start here, in one of the most expensive markets in the world. But they didn't. And the reason is simple. Vancouver's problem isn't how fast we can put up some modular boxes. The problem is that land costs are extremely high, city fees are massive, and approvals take years. Factory-built homes don't fix that. They just create cheap-looking homes sitting on the same expensive dirt. Let's be honest. Yes, prefab homes do meet code, they pass inspections, and on paper, they're safe to live in. But in markets like Vancouver, perception matters just as much as reality. And the perception of prefabricated housing has always been that it's temporary, cheap, and not built to last. People often compare them to mobile homes or trailers, even when the technology has improved. I would worry about thin walls, poor soundproofing, weaker finishes, and shorter lifespans. They assume maintenance costs will be higher down the road and that resale value won't hold up against concrete or traditional wood frame builds. There's also the investment mindset. Vancouver buyers don't just buy a home to live in, they buy an asset. They want something that will appreciate in value over 10, 20, 30 years. If a home is viewed as a quick fix or cheaply made, it doesn't inspire the same confidence. So if Ottawa floods the market with prefabricated projects, the risk is that buyers simply don't want them, renters might fill them because rents are high everywhere else, but homeowners won't compete to own them. And when buyers don't want them, affordability hasn't improved. You've just added stock people view as second-rate housing in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. So what are the risks going down the road? The first risk is wasted money. $13 billion of taxpayer funds could get locked into projects that don't make homes truly affordable. That's money that could have been used to cut fees or speed up city approvals instead. The second risk is a mismatch with demand. Vancouver buyers want durable condos and townhomes that hold resale value. If Ottawa delivers prefab stock that's viewed as lower quality, demand will still chase private developments, and affordability pressure won't change. The third risk is more bureaucracy, not less. Ottawa says that the agency will cut red tape, but adding a brand new agency often adds more layers and not fewer. We've seen that with past federal programs. Lots of announcements, but slow delivery. The fourth risk is timing. Housing markets move fast, but government projects crawl. If it takes 5 or 10 years for these projects to really get going, they'll arrive too late to help today's buyers. And the biggest risk of all is the real problems. Land, taxes, and approvals remain untouched, which means housing in Vancouver stays unaffordable while we wait for another round of announcements. Now let's talk about what would actually make a difference. First, cut taxes and fees. Right now, a brand new $700,000 condo in Vancouver comes with $35,000 in GST alone. Add property transfer tax and you're talking tens of thousands more. Then pile on city fees, development charges, and amenity contributions, and which can add $50,000 to $100,000 per unit. These layers of costs are built in before a buyer even sets foot in their new home. Second, streamline approvals. In Vancouver, getting a project approved can take years, every delay costs money, and those costs get passed straight to buyers. If approvals were fast and predictable, builders could deliver supply more quickly, which is what actually puts downward pressure on prices. Third, let private builders build. The private sector has been building homes for decades, they know the process, they know the buyers, and they specialize in this work. Unlike a giant federal agency trying to run everything at once, private builders operate project by project. That smaller scale means they can often run more efficiently, adjust faster to market demand, and avoid the waste you see in government projects. And yes, they already hire Canadian workers and use Canadian material. You don't need Ottawa to reinvent the wheel. What you need is a government that clears the path, reduces fees, cuts delays, and unlocks land quickly. That lets people who specialize at building do what they do best. That's how you actually get more homes and the homes people want at the prices they would want them at.